Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Lot Talk powered by Lotpop. My co-host, John Anderson, my co-host, Ronaldo Leonard. I'm Chris Keene. This is episode 10, where we have attempted to take the suck out of the automotive industry. It is so important that you as the listener, that you as the viewer, as you're submitting questions to us, as you guys continue to comment on it, please send us what you want to hear about. Share with us some things that you might need help with, because as we've said before, when we first started this deal 10 weeks ago, the idea is for us to give back to you guys to make sure that you are hitting on all 8 cylinders, that you're moving forward inside your operations, inside your business. That said, we've already started putting a lineup together for 2025. I don't know about you two gentlemen. I'm super excited for what we've already unpacked in 24 and what we're going to unpack in 2025. John, what's your thoughts, brother?
I mean, the one thing about it is there's never a shortage of things to discuss in our industry. So yeah, I mean, that's what I love about what we do. We get an opportunity to see frontline what's happening through our data, right? And then those weekly calls that our team and we have with our dealers, excuse me, we get an opportunity to get feedback and what's happening frontline. So I really feel like that, one of the things that we're blessed with, one of the many things that we're blessed with is through that really having a good understanding of what's happening in our industry, both new and used cars. So it's been an interesting year. And yes, by all means, I'm looking forward to, as we look forward into 2025. Absolutely.
Ronaldo, I got to hear from you, brother. 2024 has been great. The podcast has been great. What is it from you, my friend, that stood out the most?
Oh my gosh. I'd probably be remiss and the knucklehead in the room if I didn't bring to the forefront probably one of the biggest events of 24, actually of the last 5 years, was the debacle that went down with CDK and all of the chaos that ensued after that. How many times have we ever been in our industry? Have we ever seen a situation where one piece of technology, having a failure there, affect so many people, both dealers and consumers? And it was just, it was a phenomenal, impactful moment across the industry. And it was something that, we'll remember forever. Some valuable lessons that came out of it. But the thing that I think I'm most proud of, being a part of this group, you two fine men fighting along side by side, but the amount of just actionable tactics that we could bring to our dealer partners to overcome all of the obstacles that situation brought. Being able to talk to our dealers about remedying the situation and digging into just different avenues, like focusing on VDP data to continue to dig into that information to help with the process of managing the inventory. And we've talked extensively over the last few weeks about bucket management and how you do that, aligning your inventory with your lead situation. But what happens when that lead situation evaporates? The way that we present it on a daily basis. But I could not be more proud of how we interacted with our dealer partners to give them alternative methods to dig into the data that was available and continue with the processes that we had in place. Completely invaluable. And it was, probably in the middle of chaos, one of my proudest moments was to be able to sit back and watch our performance managers and watch you two lead through that situation with our dealer partners to help them and make sure that they had solutions to the problems that we were faced with. And you mentioned it earlier, in our industry, things change on a dime from day to day. And for guys like me that have ADD and ADHD and all the rest of the alphabet soup, that present issues with trying to stay focused on the task at hand. That's the beautiful thing about our business. Every day is different, but we always have similar challenges that we can rely on our expertise and our past experiences to make sure that we put a solution in front of folks that's going to help them achieve their goals, no matter what the situation is. And so, 2024, that was probably on the top list of things that I saw, and things that were, one of those things that you've never seen before. We will see it again, and we'll be able to draw on our experience of the last year. But yeah, that's what, for me, was the biggest issue that made 2024 like nothing we've ever seen before. Yeah, it was great.
So, Anderson, in that same vein, when we did get shell shocked and we didn't have, or our dealer partners and us, we didn't have the capability of seeing that lead activity and connecting those dots as we do extremely well here at Lotpop. But in that same vein, what were some of the recommendations, during that moment of time that I know it only seemed, or I know it was only like, I don't know, 3-4 weeks that we were having this challenge, but it seemed like 3 or 4 months that we were having this challenge. But what were some of the things that, in conversations with our performance managers, with our dealer partners, what were some of the things that you recommended, to them to overcome just that one sliver of area inside their business so nobody fell apart worse than what they could have?
The essential one was to stay calm, right? Don't panic, right? And I think to our team, it was a little bit different message, right? I think the advantage that we had in a situation like that was, we have a team of people that front faces our dealers, our performance engineers, and the three of us, and our CEO, Jason Rice, right? We've all had, 30 plus years experience in the seat in the dealership. So, for me, it was, communicating that to stay calm and then coach our dealer partners on what we used to have to do, right? We, all of us, I think, started at a time where, we used desk logs, we picked up the phone, and actually talked to our customers, right? So I think, let's listen, when it all happened, right? Even in our software, we were showing leads still. It was just the leads from that point forward that were not populating. So we still had, and I know dealers did, they still had, leads that were in the system, right? So I think it was just a matter of trying to get everybody to stay calm, not panic. And that's typically, look, I'm not going to sit here and act like I've never been in a situation like that and not panicked. I have, and it's frustrating, but I think for us just to coach them through that, look, there's a alternative way that you can do this. And it is going back to old school where we all used to have to operate. And that's, look, if I got to get out a piece of paper and log who walks in my front door, if I have to make sure that my team is writing down everybody they're talking to on the phone or putting it in their computer, so that we can have save a deal meetings the next morning, and we can discuss and help and continue to sell cars, right? And we had several of our dealer partners that didn't shut down and continued to sell vehicles through that time. So I think that's the most important thing as I look back, is our ability not to panic and recall how we would typically do things, right? You can still break out a piece of paper and work a deal on it, right? You can still, I think, I'm trying to remember the dealer partner that, I think it was, and I'll bring up a name. I won't bring up the dealership, but I think it was Rick Sandoval that texted me and said that within 24 hours, his team had reverse engineered a lease, had reverse engineered their financing so that they could do that on paper with their customers, right? So that's what I'm talking about, right? Is not panic and shut things down, but to forward think and go, okay, we used to do this. Let's just remember how to do this, put it down so we can continue working with our customers. And that was the main message that I think as a team, we tried to get across to our team and to our dealers. Hey, we're here for you. And we've got some solutions because quite frankly, guys, this, we've talked about it, right? There's been a lot of transition in our industry over the past 10 years. A lot of younger folks have come in and they haven't seen anything like this before. So that's where I think our strong point was, and we were able to help through that time.
You talk about Rick and his team when they reverse engineered everything. We kind of took that lead as well from a Lotpop standpoint. I mean, we started telling dealers, hey, whoa, calm down, relax. I get it. Your leads aren't coming through. I get it. Your mapping on the way everything's set up is from XYZ third-party side or from your website. The customer does a form submission or a chat or a lead or what have you, and it goes directly into your CRM. But then some dealers had completely forgot that there was a backend tool to XYZ third party, to their own website. And all we simply did was just kind of uncover that stone and say, hey, look here, that information's right there. And it's like, there was that sigh of relief. And I was just so happy that we could be right there for our dealers to be able to not share with them something they didn't know, but maybe share with them something they could, that they forgot about. And, Ronaldo, you talked about it, us being able to kind of help turn the page with them or not be in the middle of that firefight and stand above the smoke and the fire and go, hey, take a left right here. There's a clear passage and way to go. And that's what we were able to do. And guys like, Rick, John, that you talked about, that did a fantastic job of reverse engineering those leases, reverse engineering, utilizing a money factor for the people that were on that CDK DMS and still be able to figure out what payments were. Heck, I heard of some people. Now, John, I'm going to take it back to your days. This was post when you guys used the
I knew it
was coming.
I thought I'd go one episode without getting a shotgun on me, but that ain't gonna happen.
No, John, the shot's gonna come every time. Okay, you just don't know when it's gonna come. But when y'all used to use the abacus, okay, after the abacus, then there was the calculator.
1,000th and one,
when y'all was counting gazentas. But
that's what I was gonna say. I go so far back, we use gazentas, not an abacus.
Brett, our producer, sitting there going, "What are gazentas?
What's a gazentas?"
but then I actually heard
Jeffro Bodine.
Yeah, exactly. I had a dealer friend of mine call me. He goes, "Chris, do you remember the HP12C?" I was like, "Oh, of course I remember the HP12C." He goes, "Do you remember when GMAC threw out the smart calculator or the smart lease and the smart buy calculator?" I went, "Yeah."
Smart lease, yeah.
He goes, "I had all three of those." He goes, "I ran home and grabbed them. I grabbed my HP12C and the smart buy calculator, the smart lease. I had all three. And we were figuring payments off of that because we couldn't get into our DMS." I was like, "Were you handwriting contracts?" He goes, "You damn right we were."
Yep.
See, and his family and his family and his friends were probably calling him a hoarder, man. And look, stuff. See, that's why you put all that stuff back, because you never know when that stuff will come up. You'll come up needed again, right? So
you just never know. And
why are you holding on to this stuff for? This stuff's 20 years old. What are you holding on to it for?
But check this out. When the rest of the world was outside the dealership screaming, "The sky is falling! The sky is falling!" the old school guys who could, peel back the layers of technology and get back to the basics.
Think on your feet, baby.
Yeah.
Think on your feet. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. And man, I can remember the first time I had to calculate a lease by hand. I was like, I'll never need it. I'll never use it. And I remember one particular instance where lease payments weren't coming out right from the box. And I was calculating leases manually at my desk with my customers before I sent them to the box. And I'd like to think that if I were at a store when all of this kind of broke down, that I'd be able to just kind of sit there and stroke it out, and we'd be good to go. Yeah, lean on that pen, put some weight on it. There's 3 copies there,
That's it.
but everything's fine. Everything's fine. Well, yeah, let's roll.
Hey, listen, we had the May 3rd tornado back in '99 here. And we all here in Oklahoma, we refer to it as the May 3rd tornado. And we sat there and lost the generators to the dealership. Obviously, we lost cars. We had no power, no nothing. And I was one of a few people that could actually figure a lease by hand, but also convert a money factor to an interest rate and an interest rate to a money factor. That was great. But then it was horrible because I got stuck in like a freaking broom closet because I had to hand figure it. Literally, we ran down to the store and grabbed a typewriter, and I was hand typing contracts and purchase orders. And oh my God, it was so painful to try to fill a Fed box out, and you got scratch paper and you're writing this number down and fill. It was painful. It was very painful.
Yeah.
It's funny. We're talking about all this, and it is a part of our year-end review because it obviously that's a great uncover by you, Ronaldo, because that was a major thing. So, but I hope everyone that is a little bit younger in the industry is listening to, paying attention to what we are saying. Is if you don't know how to do that stuff, you're not aware of it. There's plenty of people out there. There's plenty of tools out there that you can grab hold of and prep yourself because, my suspicion is it won't be the last time this happens. And, the next time you go into it, you'd be much better off being prepped for it so that you can just calm your staff down and go on as usual, right? Just start grabbing paper and pen and keep writing deals, right? That's the main thing. Don't let it keep the main thing, as we like to say, and don't let it slow you down. So, hopefully
Absolutely.
you guys, I know we can kind of laugh about it now and talk about what we did, but man, some of you guys that don't know how to do some of these things, man, the tools are out there. You just got to ask for them. Yeah. You just got to ask for them and learn.
Yeah. You better learn because, I mean, and we talk about these old relics
indispensable that way. That you make yourself truly indispensable that way.
Absolutely.
Oh, 1,000,000%. I mean, young cats in the business. I mean, that's how you definitely sit there. And as John said, make yourself indispensable. Ronaldo, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, going back to the main thing and keeping the main thing, you still had people out there that wanted to buy vehicles.
Absolutely.
And you still had people out there that needed to sell vehicles in order to generate a living for themselves and their family.
And those people that want to buy vehicles, they don't typically care about what you got going on internally, right? So they're not really too concerned about what your issues are, right?
Not at all. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They're trying to fill their need.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're trying to fill their need. And speaking of that, Anderson, as we were kind of briefly discussing before we jumped on, the podcast here, one of the things you talked about, taking it back to the beginning of the year is it took a minute for dealers to realize that they had a hangover, and that hangover was from the pandemic. We did a whole episode this year about it of no more shooting fish in the barrel. And there was some dealers that went into 2024 realizing and watching the trend. There was some that went in realizing, whoa, hold up, we're in a paradigm shift. And they started seeing it back in September of 23. But there was some that, man, it was deep into Q2 before they realized, hey, there's no more shooting fish in the barrel. We've been operating off of a hangover, and look at the non-success we've had. Oh my gosh, we're behind the 8 ball. I mean, talk to that a little bit more, John.
Brother, I'd even add to your statement and say there are some that still are operating.
Well, I wouldn't go call them out, John. I wouldn't go call them out. I'm talking about the ones we help. Come on, man. Let's talk about the ones we help.
I'm not calling out specifics. I'm just saying there are some that are still operating with that mindset. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's easy to do, right? Look, when you're riding a wave, and our industry had a wave there for 2 to 3 years, right, where things were moving, and you had those that was a rare occasion in our industry where you didn't have to negotiate on new cars. There wasn't a whole lot of negotiating on used cars because you had, 4 to 8 customers for every car that you had out there. And there were some unusual things that were going on during that time. And, we're all victim of that, right? Because we always look back and, we compare this year to last year and then the previous year to the previous year, right? And when you start to see some of those changes, and they're not changes for the better like they were for 2 to 3 years running, you have a tendency to believe that that's not normal, instead of looking back and saying, okay, those 2 to 3 years that we had that run, that wasn't normal, right? So your tendency is you continue to hold out for what was really good, and then before you know it, you get yourself into trouble with whether it's aging inventory, expectation, owner's expectation of their staffs, right? All that stuff comes into play, and I think we saw a lot of that this year as the year unfolded. One, we didn't see the amount of customers in the market that we typically see year over year. 2, we were hearing a lot of conversation and reading a lot of conversation from the consumer that I'm going to take longer to make decisions based on the pricing of cars, right? Think about when we entered into the year, the average price of a used and new car, right? They were setting all-time records. And then you add to that the economy and the interest rates, and that made for just a really tough transition from the consumer side of things. And I think sometimes as dealers, right, we hold ourselves to a different account than we tend to hold our customers to, right? And the easy example of that is when it comes to a trade-in and how we look at trade-ins and payoffs versus how we look at the inventory we're stocking, and what our expectation is with that inventory that we're stocking, right? I can hold out on this a little bit longer, right? Because I paid this much money for it. Therefore, it has to be worth this much money. And we're the ones that'll sit in front of our customers saying, when they say we're so far off on a deal, right? And then we're like, well, how did you arrive at those numbers? And then the customer will tell us, well, my payoff is, and well, is that what you're looking for out of that vehicle? And customer will say, yeah, that's what I'm looking for out of that vehicle. And what do we typically tell that customer, right? What you owe on it doesn't dictate what it's worth, right? But yet we'll hold ourselves to a different account as managers at the dealership and think of, well, I paid this much for it, so I'm going to continue to try to hold out for gross on it. And we're basically negating exactly what we'll tell a customer. And so we just saw a lot of that. And I saw a lot of that personally when I'd look at data from dealer to dealer. And Chris and Ronaldo, one of the things we've talked about the last couple of weeks is, look at that. The man has joined us, man. Look at that.
I know, man. So John, I'm going to
stop, man.
Yeah, you got to stop because I pinged Frank. I was like, Frank, man, you got to admit it. We're doing a year in review, and what better person, Unique Auto Solutions, one of the best visionaries out there in acquisition, in sourcing inventory. And if you're on LinkedIn, go find Frank Knox, go find Unique Auto Solutions. They are a great outlet to help fill your inventory, along with John. You were just going down the path of how new car kind of went dead for a while, and the Fed wasn't giving us any help with prime, and now we're starting to get help with prime, and now new cars are moving, and now trades are coming back in the market that are good trades, but yet square pegs are still square pegs, and we can't put them in round holes. So I was like, man, let me ping Frank. Let me get Frank. We need Frank. So Frank, thank you. I know you've only got a few minutes, but we would love to hear your take. But Frank, 2024, what have you seen and what do you think is to come if we don't address what we see in 24? The mic's yours.
Yeah. So, number one, I appreciate the partnership with you guys. I mean, it's always been fantastic talking to you guys, coming out to KC and working with you guys at the headquarters there at the time that I was out there. So that's first. So, but so 2024 was really challenging, and I think it was challenging from a couple of different angles. One, I think a lot of people thought 2024 was really going to get easier, that there was going to be more product out there, that prices were going to come down. And you really didn't see that, right? Like what you saw was, companies really that had it together, that knew exactly what inventory to go out there and source, knew exactly the end user for product, like who the best end user is for product absolutely matters. And so what you saw was all of these people start to gravitate towards this mentality of the appraisal lane. They started to gravitate towards, I have to have a direct from consumer program, right? Well, that's no different than anything that the big players have been doing year after year after year. But the industry, it became this shiny new object, right? Like, hey, I'm going to go out and I'm going to acquire all my inventory direct from consumer. And we started to lose sight of, well, there's probably good product elsewhere if I just simply understand what product I need to go out there and acquire. Mm-hmm. Meaning, so Lotwalk does a great job of this, right? A great job of making sure that dealers understand this is the best product for my location. This is the best product that I know is going to sell. And therefore, if I go to the auction and I have to go out and acquire it, I can pay more than the next guy because I already read the tea leaves and understand that I'm the best end user for this product versus, hey, I'm just going to go to the auction and I'm just going to buy cars. Or I'm just going to buy them through my appraisal lane, and I'm going to beat CarMax on every car that I appraise. Well, if you plan on doing that, and you plan on beating CarMax on every single car that they appraise, you're probably going to get hurt pretty bad.
You're going to get cut deep.
and that's what I started seeing in 2024 is, one, we got really smart as an industry and said, hey, we need to build a direct from consumer program. But two, when we started building those programs, we didn't always stop to think, am I the best end user? And if I'm not the best end user, what do I do with that? Now we're at a time where Cox Automotive said it, Black Book has said it, that they feel like the market has hit it's sort of bottomed out, and now we're in a place where the market will start to take off. Well, there's a reason why a company like CarMax, back in October, if you looked online at their inventory, they had roughly 50,000 units in inventory. Want to guess how many they have right now? Over 65,000 units in inventory. So from October to December, they have built their inventory. Well, why would you do that? Well, why would I not buy cars at the bottom if I know that the market is only going to appreciate? So CarMax has a luxury that they have all these analysts in the back room crunching numbers. Not every small dealer has that. But what we do have is we have companies like Lotwalk. We have companies like Cars Commerce. We have companies like Pure Influencer, Auto Acquire. I mean, there's all these companies that are out there that are helping to guide the dealer place to understand that, hey, there's a bit of a tsunami that's coming. Why do I say that? Well, we know that there's still an inventory shortage that is going to plague us into 2025. We know that consumer sentiment is up. We know that tax refunds are going to be more robust this year than they had the previous 2 years. So what does that tell you is going to happen to the market? Well, cars are only going to get more expensive. And so if I want to be ahead of that, I better know, one, what inventory to go out and source. But more importantly than knowing what to source, I better know what to pay for. So I think 2025 is going to be another challenging year. But for those people who use the data and the information at their fingertips, they will have ultimate success in 2025.
So you talked about in here the thing that you noticed and recognized in 2024 through the analytics and data that Unique Auto Solutions is putting together, you and your team. You talked about consumer sentiment up. If a person listening or watching this right now goes, whoa, wait a minute, time out. Just in this call alone, you guys just talked about, shopper counts declining in several episodes over the last 10 weeks. You've talked about shopper counts declining. Help us understand the differentiation between a shopper count and consumer sentiment being up.
Yeah, so I guess the way I would look at that is that you can have so when you look at the shopper count, you're looking at historical, right? Like, hey, leading up to now, shopper count has not been what we wanted it to be, and it's been slowly declining. Consumer sentiment tells me that people are optimistic about what's to come. And that's what you're seeing more than anything is that I think, whether, I don't really, I don't get into politics. I don't think it really matters, to get into politics, but you do have to understand that there are a lot of people out there that are very optimistic about the economy after the election versus prior to the election. And so you have to, as businessmen, we have to be able to process that. Business women, we have to be able to process that and say, look, if people are optimistic, whatever my thoughts are, put those aside. What am I going to do to set my business up for success? What am I going to do to make sure that I'm stocking the shelves for the right sort of climate? Mm-hmm. What am I going to do to make sure that the cars are priced right, they're merchandised right, that I have the right product for the customer?
Preach. Come on. I mean, that's exactly some of the things that we've been talking about. I mean, you can sit there and identify that you've got this great inventory need and you feel that inventory out there. But it's kind of like when we first bring a customer on to, Lot Walk, and they, hire our strategies and our consulting out, but yet they do a poor job with getting cars online and photoed up. I mean, we tell them all the time, well, you might as well just take all 200 cars that you have, park them out back, put a tarp on them, and not let the world know that you even got them on your front line, because that's what you're doing in your digital dealership. So we talk about that same thing in there. And oh my gosh, if, Frank, you sat there and that direct from the consumer buying strategy in 2024, what did you see dealers do in what I would say would be step one, is saying, hey, let's go have a direct from consumer buying strategy for the dealers that did it and have success with it in 2024? What would you say was their number one reasoning that, I don't want to say gave them success in direct from consumer buy strategy, but what do you think is the number one reason that got them on the road after they committed to a direct from consumer strategy? What was the number one thing that got them on that road?
Yeah, the number one thing really, it came down to the buy-in from everyone in the dealership, right? From top to bottom. You can't have a direct from consumer program and be sort of in, right? Like, and I would argue that it's not even a direct from consumer program. It's an acquisition program. You can't have an acquisition program and only be partially in, right? If you're not tracking acquisitions on a daily basis, the way that you track sales on a daily basis, we've already lost. And so that's where the buy-in comes in, right? Like, you go to like these big organizations and people hear me talk a lot about CarMax, and I'll continue to talk about CarMax because they do it right. CarMax has an understanding of every appraisal that comes through their door. They have an understanding of every car that goes through the lane at the auction and why they bid on it or why they didn't bid on it. They have an understanding for every rental car list that they get into their locations. So when you look at all of that and you say, well, what does it take to have success? Well, that's a company that they built their foundation on acquisitions. And so if you're a dealership, you have to acknowledge that, look, where it starts, and it's not just a dealership. I would argue it's any company. If you're talking about any company that has success, their success starts with acquiring the right sort of inventory and understanding what that inventory means to the organization. And they do it from top to bottom. So if you're a dealer and you're saying, hey, I want to have success in 2025, well, the first thing we need to do is we need to gather everybody in that building together and make sure that they understand how important acquisitions are. And that's from the porter to the executives in the C-suite. Everybody in the organization needs to understand how important acquisitions are, because that porter, he's your front line. He's the guy who, when that car arrives off the truck, he's going to make sure, or she's going to make sure, that that car is pulled around, that photos are taken, that everything's done to get that car illustrated and online quickly. And the pictures, hey, I would even argue the pictures don't have to be great. Just give me a picture.
Yep.
Because customers will shop based on a picture, not based on the tarp that looks like, hey, well, it should be a Ford Explorer that's sitting there, but I don't really know if it's Explorer. It could be boxes for all I know with a tarp over it, but there's something that's there. So get everyone bought into acquisitions being important and everyone tracking that acquisitions are that important. And then now you start to build your strategy, right? But it's got to be the buy-in first. We have to get buy-in of why acquisitions matter, why it matters to get them still, and I'm going to argue, and it's not popular, but I'm still going to say that you can still have success at auction, because I see people do it time and time again. The difference is the people who are having success at auction, they are at the auction and they know exactly what they're going to buy, and they know the end number that they're willing to pay for it based on the research and data that they've pulled prior to going into the auction. So you can have that success. Direct from consumer, always going to be more successful, right? And how do you start to build that direct from consumer program? Well, there's companies out there that can absolutely assist you in building an adequate direct from consumer program and giving you the proper training. Reach out, ask for assistance, because if you've never done it before, if you don't know how to do it, there are people out there that can help you do it.
Absolutely. I am all in on that. I'm hearing the organ getting tuned up and getting fired up in the background, because he's in the pulpit and he's telling the truth. I mean, so many times
he's throwing it.
How many times have we told our dealers that you make money on the buy? And unless you go into it with a laser focused strategy with discipline, you're not going to succeed, whether that's in the lane or buying off the curb. And so, I want to dig into it and see how far we can go on it. But he's right on the mark.
Here's what I'll say, and I heard this, early on. So back in 2003, one of the things that one of my mentors told me, and it's stuck with me all these years, is that it does not matter how good of a sales team you have. Doesn't matter how good of an ops department you have. Doesn't matter what type of marketing and advertising you put forth. If you buy the car wrong, it never gets right. Period. So at that point, you're just throwing money in the wind, hoping that you attract somebody to the wrong car that you bought. But for the most part, it never gets right. So do it right from the very, very start, and the rest becomes easier. Imagine a world where people understand what they need, how they need it, where to go find it, and imagine that world as a salesperson where the cars that are coming in are just the right cars for your dealership and the right cars for the market.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's a whole different.
I saw Brian Kramer. Brian Kramer posted something that struck me, and it was awesome. His post. It was like, if I want to say, and don't quote me on this, but I think the post was around aging inventory, and it was like if 40 or 50% or something like that. I don't remember the exact number, but if that many cars are over 60 days old on dealer's lot, how can you say that you're the right end user for that car? Something's off, right? If you're holding inventory for that long, and we know profitability is leaving the car after 30 days, right? Typically 30 days is the mark when profitability is gone, and you're still holding that car, how are you the right end user for the car? Well, that doesn't make any sort of sense. Now, if you're a big volume player like a CarMax, maybe it makes sense. But if you have 20 cars, 30 cars on your lot, and you're holding 50% of your inventory for that long, well, that just means we just didn't buy the right cars from the very, very start.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something we try to help and coach dealers, with unique auto sourcing. We try to, in solutions, we try to help and coach dealers. Hey, are we buying you the right product? And are we setting the right sort of parameters to help you go out and find that inventory? And we'll sit on, I was on a call with Jason Rice last week. I called him up and I said, hey, I want to be able to help support Lotwalk. How do I do that? And the best way that I can do that is to try to get on some of the calls for my dealers to understand, hey, well, what's the information that the dealers are hearing so that I can go and reinforce that and then reinforce that with my team to go out and source that inventory for them. That's how we win in this game.
John, before Frank runs away, anything specific that you want him to recap for 24?
We've been, for the last 2 years, we've been hearing dealers talk about sourcing. So it is the number one issue. And the only thing I would be interested to hear Frank speak, because again, now we're at the end of 24, we're going into 25. So we trade for a vehicle that we're not the best end user on. Frank, what strategies or what strategy do you teach your dealer partners when they, I understand if you're going out and buying the wrong inventory, that's definitely, we've got to understand that. But if we're going to try to make deals and we're trading for everything, what strategy you put behind on if our dealership's not the best end user for that vehicle?
Oh man, you're going to get me off on a whole other tangent.
You don't have that much time.
So I think it's a great question, and I'll leave it at this. So one of the last projects that I worked on when I was at CarMax was Max Offer, and a lot of dealers are using Max Offer. Here's what I would say. On the opposite side of the table, sitting at CarMax, Max Offer was a great tool, and it was something that was going to help us to acquire more inventory and not have to go to the auction, right? Now you look at Max Offer and what it's turned into. On the last earnings call, just last Thursday, I think they said Max Offer, they acquired 33,000 units from dealers.
Wow.
So that'll probably morph into about 150,000 cars from dealers over a year time span. Think about that. CarMax, if let's say a $350 buy fee at the auction, let's say a $350 transportation fee at the auction, $700. So take that, multiply that by $150,000, and it's probably, so I think it's like $105 million to the bottom line that CarMax got to save, because dealers recognize that, hey, I'm not the best end user, and then they're going and giving the car to CarMax. But what I don't understand is if you're not the best end user, and this happens to dealers across the country, they're under one umbrella as a company, and this dealership down the street is thinking and taking that car and saying, well, I can't sell that car, but let me sell it to CarMax, versus I can't sell that car. Let me move that car to my dealership down the street and give it to them, right? So you got to ask, like, it's really there's a bit of a paradigm shift that has to happen in the industry where if you're not the best end user, it's okay to say, look, I don't sell those very well. But it's also up to you to not take the easy road and go, you know what, I have a way that I can liquidate that car really fast. There might be a better way to say, hey, how do I have a network of dealers that I can move that car to, right? I brought this up when I was out in KC with the 20 group. If in that 20 group, if that whole room isn't talking to one another to say, hey, I got these cars, I'm not going to sell them well, but I know a dealer in Kansas, or I know a dealer in Pennsylvania that can use these, then we're missing the boat. So when you take that car in on trade, when you appraise that car and it's not the right one, you have dealers out there that can use that car. It just may take a little bit of legwork to reach out and say, hey, who do I know that can use this car, and how do we win together?
Right.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Solid.
Next iteration of Lot Walk, we need to offer that to all of our dealer partners as an avenue to
100%.
put inventory up within our tool that they can get from one another if they're not the best end
A
user.
trade
right?
network.
Yeah.
A full blown, lot trade. So a full blown lot trade. I mean, there's no doubt
I have
about
one
it.
more quick question for Frank, because he brought it up when he was talking about CarMax and their ability right now to buy inventory at a low point because they know what's coming in the first quarter of the year, and they're going to maximize that return on investment. I would assume that they're pretty lean and clean with their inventory, aren't they, Frank? They don't have a bunch of bleed through in their buckets, and they don't have aging at their right. Exactly. So yeah,
because they again, and they understand, and CarMax has the luxury that they have their own auction that they run every single week, right? So if they don't need it, they know they're not the best end user. They're sending it right to their own auction.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where, we have to be okay with that. And the other thing I would say is, unique auto sourcing and auto solutions is a part of what we do. But on the unique auto sales side, our wholesale division, we get dealers calling us on a regular basis with cars that, hey, I'm not going to sell this Cybertruck, or I'm not going to sell this Ferrari. You know what? I know somebody who can use it, and they're calling up our wholesale division, right? So there's ways to think about that. You have to just get creative.
Yep. Good stuff.
That's freaking awesome. I just, number one, thank you a ton for, this impromptu, and for the viewers and the listeners. I'm literally shooting Frank because John and Ronaldo brought up some of the things that we faced in 24, and some of it was around acquisition. I shot Frank a quick text message, ask him, hey, can you join us? We're live right now. And he was like, yeah, absolutely. Number two, you spoke about NADA around the corner. We're going to have at our booth at booth 1219 down in New Orleans at NADA this year, we're going to have what's called the hot seat. And we would love, 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 love if you can join that hot seat. Great folks like Tommy Gibbs, Stacy Ellison, some of our dealer partners, they're going to sit this hot seat. Frank, we would be psychotic if we didn't have the Big Hurt, if we didn't have you on that hot seat. If you would be obliged to sit that hot seat with us, man, we would appreciate it. Would you be in for that?
Absolutely, man. I'll do anything for you guys. So yeah, absolutely, man. Just let me know, and I'll make it happen. I got to jump, guys. I appreciate the time today. You guys have a Merry Christmas, and
Merry Christmas, brother. Thank you.
Yep.
All right.
Merry Christmas, brother. Thank you. See you, bro.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff.
Wow. Well, how about that? I mean, you want to talk about, first and foremost, you just want to talk about a great partner to have. I mean, we have
the best partners in the world, man. We do.
Oh my gosh. Last minute, Frank, hey, can you jump on? I mean, John, I know you jumped in and started taking notes at the same place I started taking notes at.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh my gosh, he just started spitting out all types of gospel. And Ronaldo, I'm telling you, that's a soundbite we're going to start having in 25. When somebody really starting to throw it down, I'm going to play the organ.
Get the old Hammond going. Yes, sir.
Exactly. We sat there and we recognized it in 2025 or 2024. Some of the things that we wanted to recap, we got a little derailed from Frank, but it was great because he recapped some really good things in 24, and especially around that whole, John, I don't know if you heard of Ronaldo. I don't know if you heard it very, very clear. There was a lot of people that said, oh man, buzzword of the day, acquisition or a buy center. But the tea leaves I read is not everybody was bought into it.
No.
And everybody from fixed ops, variable, used car manager, GM, everybody's got to be bought into that. And I would arguably sit there and say, going into 25, the things we saw in 24, there was a lot of that going on, just not with fixed ops or not with just acquisition, but collectively with as simple as a pricing strategy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got the GMs leaving 20 groups here and Jason Rice from Lotpop speak, and he's talking about flat pricing. He's all in, but then the used car manager or GSM, they don't understand the why. And if there's one message I can send our listeners and our viewers on today's episode, in this year-end closeout, in this year-end wrap-up, is that if one of y'all have a great idea, get everybody bought in on that great idea. And if one of y'all have a great idea and the rest of them don't follow suit, you need to look back in the mirror and ask yourself why. Why didn't they follow suit? Did I give a clear vision to why I see that as a great direction for us to go? And if I didn't, then I need to redeliver the message. But if I did, what parts of it weren't impactful? Because that, Ronaldo, how many times have you trained a new dealer this year that has come on Lotpop and they're all in? You got the GM and the GSM and the used car manager all in.
Right.
But the sales managers and the BDC manager, they're
like,
over here playing.
Here's something else. Here's something else. I wonder how long this is going to last.
Hey,
Yeah.
John, how many times you come back from a 20 group and you have this really great idea and you go to install it, half at best on your team doesn't follow suit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty normal thing. I think that's where it comes down to, your belief in what you're bringing to the table, right? We see it all the time, right? Is that, just backing up what Frank said. I mean, it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're unable to get your team bought into what you're doing, it's going to be half-ass. That's what it's going to be. You're going to get half-ass commitment, half-ass performance, and half-ass results is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah,
I can't put it any more direct than that. And that, excuse me, that never changes. It just absolutely never changes. We see it all the time. I saw it when I was running dealerships. I'm sure you guys did too. If there's, that was part of the problem I had to adjust myself on, right? Going to NADA, and I'd get fired up and come back with, 4 or 5 things I wanted to implement. And I had to realize, right, that can be overwhelming in itself, right? I get fired up and I come back, and so I needed to really hone my skills on, that 4 or 5 need to turn into 1 or 2 that I felt like could make the biggest impact, and keep it at that, so I didn't overwhelm anybody or everyone, and it was much easier to try to implement and then hold them accountable, right?
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah.
It's easy
Ronaldo,
to get fired up, right? You see a lot of good stuff. It's easy to get fired up.
Yeah. Ronaldo, one of our processes here at Lotpop is, after a dealer has made it through, the training, after the salespeople made it through the salespeople training, and when we have recognized throughout this year that fall off, okay, what is it that you have done to help get that dealer back re-engaged? And the reason why I want you to speak to that, because some of our listeners right now, they could be in that situation. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's with Lotpop. It could be another, to John's point, a great idea. They came back from Vegas this year from NADA and they implemented something, but all of a sudden everybody's falling off and trying to get them back re-engaged to it. I mean, what are some things different that, we have done as Lotpop with our dealer partners that has helped our dealers throughout this year get back re-engaged?
Well, I think it all just starts initially when we sit down and we have that conversation. What are the things that you want to accomplish? What are the things that you see yourself achieving by partnering with us? And when we get to the point where things kind of die down, having that accountability layer. Say, wait a minute, let's call a timeout. We agreed when we started this process that this is where you wanted to go. These were the steps we're going to take to get there. We're upholding our end of the bargain, yet we're not seeing your buy-in and your effort from your team. Let's recalibrate and see if we're still on the same course. If we are, fantastic. We're going to bring the heat, and we're not here to be your friend. We're here to help you achieve the goals that you want to achieve, but it's two-way street. And so just by periodically stepping in and saying, hey, we're not as far along as we think you should be, or even by the same token, them calling us up and saying, hey, we're not as far along as we thought we would be. What do we need to do in order to get there? And so it was funny when John was talking about being half-assed. The best analogy I've ever heard of that is that if you see a guy walking down the street and he's kind of leaning and prominently to one side because he's only got one half of his glutes firing the way that it should. And if you're walking around half-assed, you're just walking around in a circle.
Right.
You are just walking around in a circle. Yeah. And so, it's just one of those things that full buy-in, full commitment, not every step is going to be perfect, but we know because of where we're headed, we know everybody knows where we're headed, and that we're going to commit to the processes and the steps every day, every time without fail, no exceptions. Then that's when we get everything achieved and get away from those half-ass results. And so, we just step into it, remind everybody of what the goal was that was stated, and then we just work towards it and let no deviation occur. Yeah. And if you're not bought in, you got to be bought out.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
Yep.
A couple more things that I want to make sure that we wrap. But one of the things that Anderson, I think you and I were in this conversation, but we were talking about that, transition of new car inventory. And maybe not as much as that transition of new car inventory, but more along the lines of new car inventory. We saw it this year just continue to stack and stack and stack and stack. And as that inventory continued to stack, a lot of these manufacturers started feeling and seeing that pressure. Obviously, there was a lot of outside influence in our industry, or from outside influence that attacked our industry. Okay. But, we talked about that transition of new car, but then we all noticed this year, the manufacturers started going in and making adjustments on these MSRPs. John, with the manufacturer making the adjustment of the MSRPs this year, with that transition as a whole of new car inventory, I mean, where did you see that from the beginning of this year to where we're at today, that impact? Where did that impact really start hitting home for dealers?
Well, I think there was a couple of things that happened. One, as you said, Chris, manufacturers realized. I read it recently because I made a comment on social media about it. Remember coming out of COVID, and all the OEMs said that they learned a lesson in COVID that they could sell more inventory without as much stock, right? And I don't know. Just last week, I read where day supply on new car inventories are 87 days again. So, that's always going to be the case, right? They're going to sell inventory to dealers, right? And dealers are in a position where they need to buy it. So I think the transition is one, we started to see rebates and incentive rates coming out. and two, you're starting to see a lower price point new car start hitting the lots again. So manufacturers made those adjustments as they watched inventory build up and through the year, and you're starting to see some sales going on, but the inventory is still coming, right? So that's where you try to put together those numbers, 87-day supply, and then what do you feel like the manufacturers are gonna do going into in finishing up the year and going into 2025, and then on top of that, what does that, what should that do or highlight or turn the light bulb on for you dealers that are stocking late model inventory on your used car lots, right? What kind of message does that send to you, and are you prepared for that, right? What is that gonna, what kind of position are you going to be in with your late model inventory that's sitting there on your used car lots, knowing those three things: incentives, rates, and a lower price point MSRP on new cars?
Yeah. And if you don't know dealers, I mean, hey, comment below, drop your name, drop your email address, drop a contact phone number, and John, Ronaldo, or myself, we'd be happy to get it regardless. If you're a client of ours or not, this is what we want to give back. We'd be happy to get on a call with you and kind of help you map that first quarter out, with all this new car inventory that you may be a little heavy in. Okay. Definitely, to find that contact information, the easiest way, go to lottalkpodcast.com. lottalkpodcast.com. You can find John, Ronaldo, myself. You can find us there, and we will gladly take time, jump on your calendar with you, have a phone call with you, have a Zoom meeting with you. It doesn't matter to us. Okay. We want to help you with your success in 2025. Thank you all for an amazing 2024. We look forward to an amazing 2025. As I've said in numerous podcasts, we'll be in New Orleans. We'll be at booth 1219. We'll be at NADA 2025. We encourage that you come by and see us. We encourage that you come by and ask some questions. Come view the hot seat. Most of it will be streamed, but come view it. See it live and in person of some of these great folks and a star-studded cast that is coming to sit in that seat with us. Come see us down at NADA down in New Orleans. But again, thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll be same bat time, same bat channel, starting next week and all through 2025. Thank you again. I'm Chris Keene, one of your co-hosts. On behalf of John Anderson, Ronaldo Leonard, who hosts this great show with us. Thank you, guys. See you next week. Take care.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.